you've seen my book. I've pivoted many times, and the young people today will be living to 100. They're going to have to pivot many times in order to stay, successful. So this change and being able to handle change, and I believe you handle change by a conversation with yourself. You take in the information, the data as they call it, and you make a decision to make a change or handle a change. Not necessarily make a change, but a change may come into either your company or your life, and you'll need to have a conversation with yourself to handle that change.
Welcome to Inspired Choice today. I'm Caroline Biesalski and I'm thrilled to have you here. On this show, we go beyond the ordinary, diving into the stories of remarkable individuals from around the globe, leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, and creatives who have made bold choices to pursue their passions. Each guest on Inspired Choice today has a unique journey to share, filled with insights, breakthroughs, and lessons that inspire and uplift. My goal is to bring you real conversations that fuel your own journey, whether you're seeking personal growth, business wisdom, or simply a spark of inspiration to say yes to your own dreams. Thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation and purpose. Now let's get into today's inspiring interview. Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline and my today's guest is Ed Hajim, and I'm so happy that he said yes to our interview. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm in Nantucket, Massachusetts, and it's a beautiful day. And I can look out and see the water and see the sky, and so it's a very wonderful day.
I love that. So let me introduce you to the audience, please. You are a seasoned Wall Street executive with over 50 years of investment experience. You have held leadership roles at prestigious firms such as Capital Group, E.F. Hutton, and Lehman Brothers, and served as chairman and CEO of Furman Cells. Currently, you chair High Vista. Please correct my English if
no, it's perfect so far. Perfect.
Oh, thank you so much. While also contributing to education, healthcare, and the arts through the Hajim Family Foundation. You are the author of the memoir On the Road Less Traveled and the educational novel Island of the Four Ps, a modern fable about preparing for your future. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Ed Hajim.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Perfect.
Oh, thank you so much. I always struggle, or I used to struggle with names. This is why I asked you also before we recorded how to pronounce your name. And I always do this with my guests. So my first question to you is your memoir. It's a word in French, right? On the Road Less Traveled chronicles your incredible journey. What key lessons from your upbringing and career do you hope readers take away from your story?
Very good question. It's a series of things I want people to take away. I want them to, first of all, realize that anything is possible. I grew up in orphanages and foster homes and inexpensive hotels, and basically, even when I was after graduating from the Harvard Business School, my net worth was negative. And after 50 years and becoming the chairman of the board of trustees at the University of Rochester, I was able to make the largest gift in their 150-year history. So anything is possible. I started with one person, me, and now I'm a family of 16. I had 3 children. You have 8 grandchildren and 3, obviously, in-laws. So we've gone from 1 to 16. We've gone from having no money to be able to give a large gift. So I've been very lucky. So first, anything is possible. The second I want people to take away is that education is the solution. They say solution to almost everything. I think it's a solution to everything. The third message is never be a victim. You're going to have bumps in your life. And the most important thing when something goes wrong, whether it's your fault or somebody else's fault, place that energy of being a victim on what I call what's next. What do you want to do next? Because looking behind you is always a mistake. It's an energy user, and looking ahead is hard enough. So basically, never be a victim. I can go further than that. I have lots of little sort of things I take back. Early failure is a gift because you learn from it so much. Late failure is not too good, but early failure, when you fail, you learn. My middle son says there's only two things that happen to you early in life. You're either successful or you get a learning experience, and I believe that. And then, of course, in my second book, what I've attempted to give to people is a vocabulary that will allow you to make better decisions. Because there's two constants in life in my mind. It's not death and taxes. It's your inner voice, which is there from the beginning to the end, and change. And what I'm trying to do with my books and my conversations is to give people a vocabulary that will help them make better decisions to make better change when the changes occur. And that's a lot of conversation, maybe too much for me to take from my life, but and I have a lot of other sort of things we can discuss, but I'm sure you'll have better questions. I hope that satisfies that first question.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Yes, there are so many takeaways in there. I would like to point out what you said. The two most important things are your inner voice and what was the second one?
Change.
Change.
Those are
Yes.
the two constants. It's constantly changing. In fact, the velocity of change, if you look back at, say, my grandfather, or even my father, they would go to work for one company and stay there their whole life. You've seen my book, I've pivoted many times, and the young people today will be living to 100. They're going to have to pivot many times in order to stay, successful. So this change and being able to handle change, and I believe you handle change by a conversation with yourself. You take in the information, the data as they call it, and you make a decision to make a change or handle a change. Not necessarily make a change, but a change may come into either your company or your life, and you'll need to have a conversation with yourself to handle that change.
Absolutely. And the Inspired podcast is about stories of change and success, because when we accept changes and we are open to it, then it leads us to success, to a great success. And I love that so much. Stories about that and what you said about vocabulary as well. It is so important, and to point that out, education as well. What would you say is the difference between education and study?
Well, education is more formal. One of the problems with studies is you don't have a formal framework. In education, you have a formal, you have choices. You can go down a path to a point, say that I don't want to go any further, but it allows you to go down that path and study it. And one of my messages to people is that most activities, the name of those activities don't tell the story. You have to find out what you physically do. I'll give you an example. When I was a freshman, I was a chemical engineer, but I wanted to be a physicist. So I took a course in advanced physics in my sophomore year. And it turns out when I learned what physicists do, turns out that wasn't for me. The only way I did that was to be able to participate in something like that. So the word physicist didn't work. That carries through my entire life. When I got out of business school, there was a choice between becoming an analyst and a banker. And everybody wanted me, banker sounds great. Analyst doesn't sound good. It turns out the analyst job was much better than the banker's job. So it's physically what you do Monday morning that really counts. And that's the important part of that whole process. So just studies don't quite do it, because you need a formal. Also, I think in studies, it sounds like a much more an independent experience. And I found that when you're in an education, you have mentors, people who will help you and guide you through.
Oh, I understand. That's the best answer, because so that means education is structured study or organized study, but so much more than that, because it's not only about gathering information or knowledge. You can also educate yourself about behavior or networking, or how to be kind to other people, how to do business. I love that. Or how to do podcast conversation.
Right? No, in today's world, that what I just said is getting less true because of the amount of information and the kind of information that's coming through. Studies are becoming more important. One can say, I really want to study this. Unlike when I was going to school, that wasn't really available. Today it is available. And the more I've seen of this, the more I'm impressed with the fact that you can study and actually accomplish certain kinds of things.
Yes, so all the information are available to almost all the people of the world. But how you pointed out, it is important what you do physically on Monday morning. And I love that so much because I never heard it before, but I know what you mean, of course. For example, being in front of a customer or client by 9 a.m. or before 9 a.m., something like that. I don't know. Let's have a look at my next question. With over 50 years in the investment world, what has been the most significant change in the industry that you've witnessed, and how did you adapt to it as a leader?
Well, the biggest change is when I went into the business, most of the companies were quite small. When I became a partner and a member of the board of directors of Lehman Brothers, which was one of the premier firms, they had $24 million worth of capital. Think about that.
Yeah, 24
Now
million.
the capital of these institutions are, and we only had 700 people. Now a place like Goldman Sachs may have 40 or 50,000 people, or JP Morgan even more. So the industry was a small, almost cottage industry when I went into it. And as I for the 50 years, it obviously changed. And one of the things that happened to me is I found that I was running a medium-sized company. I got to a point that I saw this consolidation in the industry, and my decision on what to do was to sell the company because we couldn't compete, and it was turned out to be very true. I mean, if we still were running the company today, I think we would not be doing very well at all. But at that point in time, the larger companies were buying smaller companies. They were paying very nice prices, and it was time to, as they say in Texas, there's a time to hold them and there's time to fold them. And I decided I would fold them. I didn't want to, but it was just a period of history you had to do, and that's how I adjusted. But the big difference is now there were literally hundreds of firms when I entered the industry in the 60s. And today there really are a dozen or so, maybe 2 dozen. So we've gone down by, I'd say 75 to 80% in terms of numbers of firms. And therefore what you do Monday morning is very different. Because at a small firm, you have a lot of responsibility. And a big firm, you're a part of a very large organization. You may have more resources and so on, but it's a very different experience. So when young people say to me, I want to enter the financial business, I say, do you recognize that it's quite different? Now, it's still exciting parts of it. There are exciting companies in it, but it is a very different industry where the major players are very large. JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. These are the big players. Goldman Sachs. I mean, Goldman Sachs, when I got out of school, took 2 people per year. 2. Now they take hundreds. So, if you were 2 persons coming into a company, you got a lot of attention. If you're one of a few hundred, it's a different experience.
Oh, that's so true. Thank you for sharing. I was not aware of that. Of course. I thought, yeah, the employees are growing, or the number of employees as the world population. Maybe it has to do with that. We don't know. You know, maybe.
I think, well, again, it depends on each person. I say people have to find out who you are. I like a smaller experience where I have more responsibility. I don't have quite the resources that large companies had, but I want to be able to do certain kinds of things. And at large companies, there are more rules. There are more things you have to do. It's a different Monday morning experience, and it's not, you have to find out who you are, and maybe you like that better than working for a small company where you're, well, on your own in a lot of cases. And also, I think it's much easier to build if you're going to work on the whole company. It's easier to build a whole company if you're in a smaller situation, obviously. But that was the big change. That is the huge change. Also, the amount of information available. I mean, when I started the business being an analyst, I was one of the few people out there. Now there's just hundreds of people. I remember visiting a company in Cleveland. I may have been the first or second person ever to visit the company. And now every the companies are well covered. There's also, the information flow has been extremely different. And the legal side of it was different. The whole experience is different. So it's got much more sophisticated. There are many, many, many more rules. When I went, there wasn't a cowboy experience, but you were kind of out there with yourself doing what you'd go in and talk to people, and they tell you things that they couldn't tell you today. You got it's a much more intimate relationship. So
Yes,
those are big changes.
you had to find out, and now the people benefit from that because because we or you filled the internet with all the information and it is available to everyone. Yes, let's have a look. I have another question for you, of course. Through the Hajim Family Foundation, you're deeply involved in philanthropy, particularly in education and healthcare. How do your personal values shape your philanthropic focus?
The main focus of our giving has all been education, because again, I've actually focused my education on the person who gets through the first 17 years as a senior in high school, and the only thing that person needs is funding to take the next step. So we are probably up to 300, 400 scholarships at the Nantucket Golf Club. We'll have 75 people in school. They're sponsored by the club. Just about everything I do is involved in education, and that's where I really focus it. I was a trustee of a hospital, so I was involved there. I've been a trustee of a few museums, so it's not completely in education, but the main amount of money is education, and that's where I'm headed on almost everything I do. I tend to try to sponsor scholarships for young people. I also find it's a little bit selfish. I feel the return on giving young people that chance is something you get much more than you give. When you see someone standing on a stage, it's one of my scholarship students. She's 5 foot tall. She's a optics engineering major. She got her PhD. She also is a concert pianist and a concert violinist. And she said, if it wasn't for you, Mr. Hajim, I wouldn't be here today. And that's enough payback so that's where I've basically found my greatest satisfaction is changing those lives of people. And now I'm actually focused on not only academic education, but what they used to call vocational education, nurses, marine engineers, chefs, even carpenters and plumbers and electricians, which I think I'm involved down at a school in Florida with those kinds of education, because I believe that if that's what you want to do, you should be sponsored to do it. But even those young people don't have the money, and it's a small amount of money to go from high school to a community college.
Yes, absolutely. So I love your mission, your purpose as well. And what about your goals? Do you set goals for yourself or intentions? And what is one of your next project? And how can people help you or support you in your mission?
You asked a very bad question, because I'm
Why?
on a crusade right now. My crusade is with my 2 books, especially the second book. And people have told me this is what they think I should do, so I've pursued this aggressively. I want to create a course, and I have a template for that course, and it's being used at 4 institutions right now for freshmen in college or seniors in high school, where they will go through the process of writing a life design, asking my 4 questions. What are your passions? What are your principles? Who are your partners? And what are your plans? The freshman year to write that down formally, and just in many respects, look at the different avenues you might take. And during your 4 years, given the fact that the college is a place where you can fail or you can try things out, during the 4 years, try things out. Find out what you really want to do. And when you graduate, you not only get a diploma, but you've got a life design. I admit, written in pencil, so you can erase it because there'll be many changes. But I really want to do this. I'm trying to get this into university. We have one school where there's 100 students in it this year, and they're all kind of excited about that, because what has happened is the university basically is not only interested in teaching you how to make a living, they're teaching you how to make a life. And that's, in my mind, the universities, they don't do a great job of that. It's all done informally. I want to do it formally. That's one of my crusades. The second crusade is this pushing for community college, professional vocational education in other areas, the non-4-year experiences. Just like, one of the young men that we've come across in our travels, he wanted to be a chef. Well, to be a chef, you have to go to Johnson Wells. It costs $60,000 a year. We were able to give him a scholarship for that, change his life. So those are the 2 crusades. The first one is a very definite one. I'm spending quite a bit of time trying to get universities, schools to put this into their either a workshop or actually a course where the student sits down and asks questions like, who am I? Where do I want to go? How do I think I might get there? Why do I want to go there? What's my purpose? So these bigger questions, they should be asking early on in their career and then to test them as they go through. I don't want to give up in learning, chemistry and calculus and so on, but I want to set that other parallel experience while you're at school. Because many things you do learn become obsolete. Like I was a slide rule champion when I was a chemical engineer. I went into service, and 3 years later, there was something called a computer. So all that slide rule capability was not useful. But this particular life design will last a lifetime if you use it the right way. And I have used that. I had what I called my yellow pads. I would sit down every once a year, write down, where I wanted to go and so forth. And every 3 years, I would do a deep dive and say, am I at the right place? Am I in the right position? And so I've been successful. So I have a proof of concept to some extent.
Yes, I see. Thank you for sharing. I love that you turn these skills of designing your life or the life of the student into a formal education, as you said as well. And yeah, we did not have that. I had to learn this at the age of 45 or something.
No, that's the problem. You may have started podcast 10 years earlier if you would have gone through the processes, right? Here's my alternate path. I may want to do. My father wants me to be a lawyer. Well, my talents take me in being an engineer. But what I really want to do is I want to take care of animals. And so ask those questions early on. You may decide to go in one direction. I'll be a lawyer for a while, but I'm going to get back to doing this that I really love and so forth. So those are the kinds of, and I want kids to ask those questions. It's good for the university because when the student goes home at Christmas time, he says to his parents, they're not only interested in teaching me calculus and chemistry, but they're interested in me. And I think that's something the university has to do more of. And each university or each school will take my template and add special things that are allied to their particular population. I mean, if you got a lot of first gens, it's not different than if you're at Harvard, so.
Yes. Wow, that's so true. Thank you for sharing. So tell us before we close where people can find you when they reach out after listening to this episode.
Well, the two books, luckily my name, Ed Hajim, is an unusual one. So if you type that into Amazon, you get my two books. Mm-hmm. Or you can go to www.edhajim.com. My publicist has put in a very, very robust website. And then finally, they've talked me into going on going on to, that's terrible. That's going Instagram. Oh, I'm on Instagram. She's done a great job of putting all my things on Instagram.
I love that. So please reach out to Ed Hajim. He's amazing. He has an information not many people have, and he's willing to share it with you. And now it's time for your thoughts, your last message to the audience, please.
My message is simple. It's those three things that continue to reach and believe that anything is possible, because in America, in our country, really, you can almost have anything you want. You have to obviously work at it. You've got to be a little bit lucky. Education is this solution to everything. And if you can help it, never be a victim. That is the drainage that comes away. And, I guess my last wish is that if you grab hold of my second book, it's only a 2.5 hour listen or maybe a 2 hour read, and see whether or not there's something in there, not everything, but that I can give you one idea that might help you on your road, your journey.
Wow, that was an inspiring interview. Thank you so much, Ed Hajim. This was great.
Well, thank you. I had fun also. Caroline, you have good questions.
Thank you, and see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Inspired Choice Today podcast. We hope you found today's conversation as enriching as we did. If you're feeling inspired and ready to take the next step in your own journey, I'd love to offer you a free 20-minute consultation. This is a chance to explore any challenges you're facing, get clarity on your goals, or just connect and discuss where you want to go next. Reach out to me directly to schedule your consultation. I'd be honored to support you on your path. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode filled with inspiration, insights, and powerful stories. Until next time, keep making those inspired choices every day.